Today we're going to look at a half-sunken ocean liner that lies half-submerged and tipped to one side since 2000, when it had a fatal encounter with an uncharted reef, ending its career. But before we find out what happened, let's look at the history behind this ship. In 1974, this ship was built for the BEWA cruises out of Denmark and would be named the BEWA Discoverer. Then, 2 years later, in July of 1976, for unknown reason, the ship would be sold to the Adventure Cruises and would end up being renamed to the World Discoverer. The ship also became a long-term charter to Society Expeditions, which Society Expeditions was an adventure cruise line that would use the World Discoverer to sail tourists across the country. The ship had the capability to cruise 8,000 miles, and with this range, it would allow this to be the first ship ever to transit to the North Passage. But later on, in 1987, the Society Expeditions would change owners and the company would be renamed to Society Expedition Cruises. Now, the new owner of the company owned another ship named the MV Explorer, which was built in 1969, but later would sink as they would sail through icy waters and hit an iceberg in 2007. The World Discoverer was registered in Liberia in 1990. It was built with a double hull, allowing passengers to observe ice floe movements in the Antarctic polar regions. And the ship was designed to take minor impacts from the ice floes. In 1996, World Discoverer would undergo renovation, bringing the vessel up to date. The vessel would also carry small inflatable boats called dinghies, which would enable passengers to get close to ice floes for observations. Which ice floes are these sheets of ice that come in many different sizes and would float on top of the water. The ship would end up sailing to different countries around the world, along with making special trips to Antarctica. Now, since we know a little bit about the history, let's dive right into what happened. On April 30th, 2000, around 4 p.m., the World Discoverer was sailing around the Solomon Islands when unexpectedly struck a large uncharted reef while traveling through a small passageway. The Solomon Islands is a sovereign country northeast of Australia consisting of 6 major islands and over 900 smaller islands. The captain would send out a distress signal which was received in Honiara, which is the Solomon Islands capital city. So a passenger ferry was dispatched to the ship and all the passengers were then transported to safety off the ship that was starting to sink. Once everyone was safely off the ship began to take on much more water and started to tilt. The captain then quickly brought the ship into Roderick Bay so that the ship would not sink all the way. Later, the ship would undergo underwater surveying to see if the ship could be saved. But unfortunately, the ship couldn't be saved and it was declared as a constructive loss. Then, after the ship was lost, the president of the Society Expeditions Cruises would congratulate the captain and his crew on their heroic and professional actions to escort everyone off the ship and to safety. The closest salvage company stationed in Australia were hired to salvage all that they could from the ship, but once they arrived to the ship, they found that the ship had been ransacked by locals. During trying to save what they could from the ship, they were immediately shot at from local tribes in that area, so they left the ship be. Now, at the time this was going on, the Solomon Islands were undergoing civil war. The ship became a tourist attraction with all the locals of the island as well as other cruise lines that would pass by the abandoned ship. The ship still sits today at a 46-degree angle, decaying and rusting away. There are no other plans to remove the ship, leaving this ship abandoned and allowing nature to take over. Okay guys, that does it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and until next time, peace. I love you, and as always, God bless.